Alright, so this is my remaining crowd who has not run yet for my persuasive speech. Yay! Today you will come to the dark side because Adam made barbecue.
Works enough for me.
So, each year cancer kills 584,881 people. Alzheimer's disease kills another 84,974 people. And while we were on the previous subject of kidneys, nephritis, nephrotic syndrome, and nephrosis all are very, very bad kidney problems where it's inflammation of the kidney tissues, it's sclerosing it, which hardens them, and that actually kills 47,112 people a year. That sounds like a lot of pain and agony to me, but I don't really know why we actually need to have any of that when we have other options that are viable options that people just need to kind of evaluate the pros and cons for personal choices. Which leads me to Dr. Kevorkian, who took his Hippocratic Oath in 1952. For those of you who don't know who Dr. Kevorkian is, he is a famous doctor from when I was growing up as a small child who assisted people with assisted suicide because they had terminal illness. And they didn't want to live like that anymore. A lot of people felt that that was morally wrong and against his oath that he had to take. So he was always fighting to get this taken care of, and he actually wound up going to jail for 8 years over it because he wanted to go to try and prove a point before they released him for good behavior. They also expected he'd die shortly after, and he lived another 12 years. So he continued that entire time to fight for the cause of legalizing right-to-die laws for human euthanasia. What most people don't realize is that 2.7 million animals are euthanized every year. Most of them are healthy. They're just killed because they're homeless and we don't have enough spaces in our homeless shelters for animals. And we don't really think twice about that. We treat our pets like they're our loved ones. We refer to them lovingly as our babies and come to mama and whatever else. And when they're hurting and they're old and they're suffering, we don't even think twice. We make the appointment, we go in, we make our peace, and we say goodbye, and we let them go so that they don't have to hurt and they don't have to suffer. But for our own people, we don't even bother. We literally sit there and try and make them comfortable until they're just not viable life anymore, and they're in pain despite the medications. They're begging us to just put them out of their miseries. In most states, we can't do that. They don't even have an option. So we just sit there, and most of the time, some of us keep them alive, not because of anything more than our own personal needs, because we're too afraid to say goodbye because we love them so much. But it pains us at the same time to watch that, and so we'll abandon them when we can't take it anymore, and then they sit there and they suffer alone. In hospice homes, their own homes, hospital beds, they're forgotten, with no options. So, a lot of other people are saying that that's a slippery slope to legal murder. Well, I'll tell you what, it could be, but we've got 5 states that have that law legalized for a right to work, or a right to die state. Every one of them, with the exception of Montana, has such strict rules on it. You have to have at least 6 months or less to live, and have actual proof from your doctors on these terms and times. They are required to have at least twice talk to their physician for an assisted suicide on 2 separate occasions that have to be at least 15 days apart, and they still have to give a written letter to the physician to try and obtain one of these. They also have to be at least 18 or older. Montana has theirs asterisked out because there are some times when you have children that are very, very tiny who can't really speak for themselves, and they kind of have a little bit finer line, and they're doing theirs a little bit more on a case-by-case basis. People have moved to these states in order to have these options on numerous occasions, and we watch the fights in the news over it, because I know personally when I die, if I'm going to be dying of something that's a terminal illness, and we have options that aren't available, yeah, I'll go someplace where it is, because I think I have the right to determine whether or not I want my friends and family to bear the burden of the massive hospital and medical bills that comes with laying there, not being able to do anything, I have the right to decide if I want to die with my dignity and to be remembered as a happier, healthier person or slightly nicer person, doesn't matter, versus somebody who withered away to pretty much a non-identifiable corpse. And I'm sure we've all been there and seen our friends and our families and close friends of our families suffer that way and wish we could do it and watch them not be able to speak from behind the pain in their eyes, begging us to just finish it. That should be a viable option. The religious people are worried about how that affects religion, but the problem still remains that they're not actually realizing that religion is very personal, it's very individual to each and every one of us. Not all of our religions are the same. They don't all have the same exact portions and beliefs on death or critical terminal situations such as having the right to die with your boots on. Because of that, that should be something that's evaluated, that they need to realize that it's not about their religious beliefs and how they feel that it might be wrong, because that just tells us that that's not necessarily their personal choice. Because this is a decision that we as people have to make for ourselves, and occasionally our family know where they stand on that. But the problem still remains that we don't have any rights to these laws at this point in time, which means I can't talk for myself, you can't talk for yourself, and we can't talk for our loved ones. What do you do for those options? Get it on a bill. Try and legalize it. This helps so that we have less pain, less suffering. It's respect for our loved ones, because that is the hardest decisions you will ever have to make. Because nobody really wants to die, but nobody wants to sit there and suffer to death either. That's just immorally wrong. And it only costs about $35 to $45 to actually have this process done by comparison. And if we legalize it, then that means that we can probably get insurance rates, or not insurance rates specifically, but the insurance portions to still cover that. Because most insurances right now, when you still take your life into your own hands, will not pay out to your family, no matter what the circumstances are, for suicide. But if they legalize this, then they could change it for that one exception in order to help that, so that they could still have their burial services and their rites of passage into the next belief of their process. But in reality, if we, it won't really matter if we legalize the assisted suicide or not, because let's face it, where there's a will, there's a way. 39,518 people intentionally kill themselves every year anyways. We don't know what their reasonings are oftentimes. For those of you who are local, we already know that we had a local who's a big name in this community who did that for personal reasons because of being ill. Because there wasn't the option, it was easier than apparently moving to a state and becoming established. So why not give that option? Because there are super lots of restrictions on those. Literally, you have to be 18, you have to have doctor's notes, you have to prove that you've got 6 months or less. There are barriers that are being put into place. So it's not a slippery slope the way everybody thinks it is, and it's not as easy to kill our aging society as they're trying to make it out to be in a lot of areas. But I do think that it is our personal choice. I think it is our personal right. Not much different than abortion and a lot of other things that we get to choose in our right of religion. It should be that kind of a personal choice, because I'm the only one who knows what's best for me. You guys are the only ones who knows what's best for you. And if I would want that option for myself, then I know that other people want that option for themselves. So my stance on being able to legalize a right to die law, I think that's absolutely necessary. We have countries in the Netherlands that's never even had a hospice home because they've always done it. It's actually a right, no different than our right to bear arms. And they don't have any problems with this. So I think that with the right restrictions, we could pull it off in America as well.